What I like about Letters About Literature is that it provides an audience beyond the teacher for my students' writing. There's also a lot of choice involved. They can write about any piece of writing that's had impact on them. So it could be a book or a poem. It could be something they read last week, or it could be something from their childhood. So there's more flexibility than there is for a lot of other writing assignments. And it's also less structured, but yet not totally without structure, because that can also be intimidating. So it's not a 5-paragraph essay. They don't have to come up with some thesis or understand symbolism, but they can use their own voice to convey their ideas in whatever structure works for them. But again, there is the letter format, so it gives it some guidelines, but a lot of flexibility. And I think all those are different than a lot of other writing assignments we do in class. I have been doing the Letters About Literature contest for 12 years now. And I always start with having them hear sample letters. The one that I actually love to start with is about a poem, because again, that they can write about a poem or a book. And the nice thing is we can read the poem and then we can read the sample letter, so everyone knows what the kid was writing about. And it shows what a successful letter looks like. We take some time afterwards to say, well, what was the impact of, in this case, a poem, or if we look at other samples, the book on the kid, on the reader, and what connections did they make, and what makes it a successful letter. And by looking at a bunch of samples, kids get a sense of where to head. I have my students brainstorm using an activity provided by the contest, which has kids think about, make a column for thoughts and emotions that the book prompts for them, and then to think of the connections between those thoughts and emotions to really get to the impact the book has had on them. I also have them use the visible thinking strategy of the 4 C's. And then ideally, if I have time, I do a fast read through all the drafts, only asking questions. I'm not looking at grammar, I'm not looking at structure, I'm not looking at any of that. I just look at their ideas and we'll throw in a few questions. So what, why, how? Can you give an example? Just a couple questions like that, really fast reads. I've also some years been able to have the school librarian help me do that. One other item that I think really has helped me, that there are always a few kids that just say, I've never met a book I liked, I'm not a reader, and they just really feel like they're stuck. And so 2 ways that I've found, I had a special ed teacher who just came up with sort of a template for kids, where just a question for each paragraph they could write about, basically like how they are as readers and what did they think about this book and what did it make them think more about, and just simple questions. And again, once they get started, usually they can get somewhere successful. The other is that I usually assign for independent reading, sometime prior to the contest, a window book, so a book about somebody different from themselves. And I like them to read window books and their worlds to get bigger. But what I find is when comes time for the contest, everybody has something they can write about, because that's a book they've read recently. And usually kids that read about somebody whose life is very different from their own it's pretty easy to come up with reactions to it. And those, sometimes there can be simple letters, but they're powerful and thought-provoking. It's funny, I just had a kid come back and visit at the end of the school year. She's off in high school now, and she came back, and it was so, when she walked in, the first thing I thought about is she had written this amazing letter about literature. And I was so neat to be able to say, and she wrote this amazing letter about literature last year. And, the kid got 2 inches taller, but it was true, and it came out of, she wrote about a childhood favorite book. And it really was a turning point for her.